a beautiful.
We wanted to have the logo be incorporated into the sort of overall design of, you could see all the Kryptonian writing and like this. I was really obsessed at the time with having the logos be part of the movie. You can see I really went completely nuts on that. What? That's the old logo. Look, I'm going to be honest. I wasn't a huge fan of the peel down. Now, I always liked the old C. I just felt like I have actually a images from this dry erase that I did where I was working on the logo. One day I'll show you that. It's like when we were in Detroit, I really was obsessed with kind of fixing that logo and a little bit back to its, the original, vibe. It was amazing. Yeah. Russell's, he's, never like outside of the moment, very much analyzing everything that's happening. Really was excited. I think partly because he liked Rondor Beast. Yeah. Sorry, I always you got to point that out. One thing about the Rondor Beast that's amazing and that needs to be acknowledged is that the Rondor Beast, for the entire 3, when we were working, we'd always say, like, let's go back to the beginning. Say, to the Rondor Beast. That was like the joke that we all had about what the very beginning, because the very beginning, like, obviously the Rondor Beast, like,
right there, the first shot.
One of the first things.
Yeah.
So that was always a reference we had. So anytime, I think it's cool to say, talk about.
Even the designs of the costumes, but yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to Russell's, costume, and even like the Jor-El armor. It always had. I really like the idea.
Yeah,
it does look very organic. Vibe, contrast to the Zod. The Zod costume has more of a vibe to it. I always love that when he blows away.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
He's like, I don't like what you're
saying. I always thought also, like, we always joked about I always said I would never make a movie with the counselors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're always laughing because
he just goes, nope.
Yeah. No, also just like the concept, like I used to make fun of movies that had a counsel. I was like, oh geez, I'm doing it fine.
We're doing it again.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah. Not only doing it, but it's like really marquee.
Yeah. No, but this, I love this exchange between two. The contrast between you.
Well, also just the notion that Zod was probably
be okay with
be down with like this notion.
And he respects them too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think that for Zod, Jor-El would be an obvious ally in this.
Of course not.
Then there's the...
I was going to ask about...
I think we had a little bit...
Yeah? Citron's there?
Citron's there. And then we see him again. I think he has 2 parts in this movie.
He's all over the place. Is that him? No, that wasn't him.
Yeah, that's him.
Was that him? That's him right there. That's awesome. And then you got that. I love that technology that you... for the Krypton technology.
Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you. All right. Well, cheers, man. Yeah. Cheers.
The Man of Steel.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder why they put a
half a blood orange in it.
And also, this is rosemary.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Something like that.
Obviously, the Clark had that.
That's what it was. This is Drinks with Zack Snyder. Right?
No, we hadn't established that in the beginning, but I'm sure it's
something like. But this whole sequence right here is.
Yeah. So that technology of the when we talked about having the robots be able to have that sort of geo, where you see later in the history lesson, that kind of where it's almost that allows you to send or, so that was it. That was
really
cool,
it's really awesome.
Cool. Yeah. There's a really we shot a bunch of shots of Russell. It's not in the movie when when the animal gets killed. Did quite a long bit that never ended up in the movie. It was really incredible.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. Obviously you have Russell cool eyes.
You really do.
Yeah, as much as possible.
It was cool. This was a cool set. This was in Vancouver. We built and then we had the set pieces lowered down. Alex had built us almost like this translucent kind of dome that we just put into the tank, and then Russell he did have to a bit of that's a bit of swimming.
Yeah.
And then this piece we built on the side of the tank where he climbs out.
That codex. He's got the codex. And Clark into his hand. I know. How dare he?
This is always cool. Like I always like this.
The little free fall right
here. This concept. Like what does he do?
He knows. He knows.
He does. He knows.
Yeah, there it is.
He's got a well-trained friend.
Exactly.
That's why he was so moved by the end when he died.
Yes, it makes sense now. He had a connection.
Also,
he had a connection with him.
I did always like this foreshadowing of the black suit.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, because you have the armor above, and then you have like the suit underneath, like the way that it's designed and everything. And of course, it's a callback when it comes to, I guess you could say, this. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, like he shot. Yeah, the nightmare was we started talking, and here he is dying. So that bit, there's a bit right there where Russell gets off and goes around and cradles it that we shot.
Yeah.
But it was.
And then of course we got this right here. It's like, hey, Earth.
Yeah,
that's a good place.
That feels cool.
Yeah, I think
they're primitive.
Yeah.
Look at them.
Yeah, they got this sun thing that he might, that and become a little.
He'll be a god there.
Yes, exactly.
I always felt like, this mythological part, of the movie where basically how much do you about Earth and about what will happen? And of course, we know that there's a scout ship on, so they do have some, except I don't know how much, based on the wreckage of the scout ship, how much they knew about it, but then when the ship clearly crashed.
Yeah, I know. When's that coming?
And then of course there's the chrysalis.
Yeah, that's always that question, right?
That is really
who's in the open pod, Zach?
That's a 3-movie. I think. Do we show the open pod in 3 movies? I don't know. I think we showed it 2 for sure.
I think in Justice League there is you see the open pod in there.
I think it's only in 2. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely.
Yeah.
The open pod in Justice League, remember, I had to really analyze even like the hand where he wiped his hand across exactly the same.
So who's in the... Okay. But this scene right here, the way that he just sending off his only... Then, of course, and Hans Zimmer scored too, but it's beautiful.
Just incredible. I always wonder why, with what Hans did with this, I often wonder why nostalgically for the other one.
Which
I have no problem with. I love it.
It's a great score.
But like...
It's for that Superman.
It's for that Superman.
Yeah.
This is the challenge, say, of that. The challenge of like, okay, we have to write, and knowing what exists, still taking on. I find that really. This was always cool. The way that I always love the way we designed that with shit.
I love this shot right here. Very Apocalypse Now.
It's Apocalypse Now. What are you talking about? Very Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
It is Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's Apocalypse Now.
And then this shot right here of him putting on the armor.
What's cool about, of course, this armor is all of it was what. No real, not even that armor.
I know. That's what's crazy. We've seen the behind the shots where they're wearing the mocap PJs, and it's like, what? That was what?
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact.
Also, there was a huge fight scene of Drew, where at this scene, like where they're fighting Zod's forces in the doorway of the Citadel, and they're like, and Kelex and Keylor. I think I drew a whole thing where they go out and run, and where Kelex like sacrifices himself. Beep, beep, beep. He runs out and blows himself up and like blows up one of the drop ships.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like a whole fight I had designed for.
And this showdown right here, Michael Shannon, by the way, working with him. Yeah.
The thing about Shannon that's amazing is really incredibly dry.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
Yeah, no, he's hilarious.
Yeah,
and no one can tell when he's joking.
Yes,
and he literally will scare you. Half the time you're like frightened, and he's like. What do you?
Yeah, you're like, wait, did I upset you somehow?
Yeah.
Did I do that? And then he's just joking. I know. I was just talking about how like he was in the Bullet Train, and I forget that he's in there, and he's very dry in there too. But then of course we come back to Zod, and the fact that obviously the line that we all know from Zod from the is kneel before Zod, but I mean he really makes his own line when it comes to his Zod, which of course we see, which is I will find him. I don't know how many people that gif or whatever the heck, but but this fight right here.
That's where he got the scar too,
yes.
Right? Look at this. And again,
that's crazy.
Like how is that? How long ago was this movie? 10 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
Still
it's looking really, really good, dude.
It holds up pretty good.
It does. It really does.
I have that gun that Weta built those guns.
Weta.
Weta built those guns.
That's cool.
Weta built our guns for Rebel Moon as well.
Yeah, so they're going to be great.
Yeah, they're going to be cool.
Yeah. And then this right here, you got the mother like going, should I do it? And this whole thing
let's launch
drama right here.
Look at that.
Good, the coverage shot.
So good.
And then we can't hear the score right now, but I hear it in my brain, and I'm just like, jeez.
Sorry, we're watching the movie now.
I know, exactly. Now we're both nerding out on this little artsy movie.
It's the shot where if you guys are
This.
with us. It's Jor-El just getting stabbed.
Yes.
In the felt like the kidney.
Was it the kidney?
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I was like,
It's like it's a low blow.
It is a low blow. Yeah. I mean, enough to do. I mean, this fall right here is bam.
This is a hard fall.
That's a hard fall.
Really.
Every time I see that, I go, phew.
Yeah.
Man, that stuntman.
Russell said to me, he goes like, "About the gladiator fall."
Yeah. That's a good gladiator fall.
And of course, I was like, "Yes,
do
please.
it, do it." Because every time I see that, I go, "Oh my God, I felt that."
Yes, please. I will take gladiator fall if you're willing to.
And then this right here. Jeez, look at that look. Look at those eyes.
Yeah, no,
Shannon. Those eyes. He just, like you said, you don't know if he's joking or not. It's just those eyes. Feora.
Yeah.
See, now we're just watching it.
Yeah, now we're just watching it.
I know, exactly.
That's
Because it's so beautiful. And like
spaceship,
Yeah, it goes right up there.
It's cool. They got it, and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to shoot it down, but
No.
nope, not happening. Sorry.
Finally, the
and then
council got its shit together. Yeah,
exactly. And I love this shot. The last shot we see of Shannon right here when the light's like on him. I love how when he looks up with the scar right there, beautifully shot. Like that shot right there, so beautiful. I love that.
The weirdo space movie. Yeah, it's good. I guess we could have made a whole movie on Krypton, really.
Really, right?
Right.
Jeez.
Well, it's under this also, like, the design is really cool.
The costumes,
this notion that it's underneath that kind of crust. Where, like, below them, you see that's kind of like ribs that you go through that crust and go down into the body of the. And these guys had those. Those are all CG as well.
That's all CG too.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole this speech right here from Shannon is like, did he lose his phone like this?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God.
I love it. Yeah, Shannon's the best. He was really
the best.
And also these, even just the design of those like weird shackles.
Yeah, that's pretty cool too. Yeah, because it's like that.
They kind of
around
bind
his
you like
neck.
this, so you can't. Yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah, there's that line right there. I will find him.
These phalluses.
Yeah, because obviously when it came to like the original Superman, when it came to the Phantom Zone or whatever the heck, so you wanted to do like an updated kind of version of that. It's kind of right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That they get projected in Phantom Zone. Was really like that. This ship, is basically a projector.
Yeah.
And so you had this huge, even like I love that like.
Yeah, with the
weird particulates.
Yes, on the lens. Jesus, it's those details, man.
And then you get to really get a good look at Krypton here. And then here they are with the sort of dimensional portal to go into the clearly just some sort of dimensional sort of rift that those little
goes right through.
Kind of like,
the little tentacle thing with the balls on them. Yeah, just swallows it right up.
Gonzo.
Octopus.
That's a bad jail.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, you don't want to go there.
No, you don't want to go there.
Yeah, you don't want to get sentenced.
CG.
That's CG?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's insane now.
So those suits were, wow.
Yeah, those suits don't exist. Did anyone, do we know has anyone ever built one of those for real, like a cosplay?
Probably. We got to seek that out. Anybody out there?
Is there anybody out there who's ever built
And if you haven't, start
Jor-El armor for real.
Yes. And I love this right here too, where she's just like, all right, I'm just looking at the planet. I know, she looks great. She's accepted her fate. Yeah. She knows her son is gonna be okay. Look at that. Nope.
I guess Jor-El was right.
She's like, yep. God, should have listened.
Environmentalist.
I know. It's like he was telling me this whole time.
The core was pretty unstable.
But yeah, this shot right here is cool. I love that shot. Right there. And then I remember the first time I watched Man of Steel in the theaters, and I was going, okay, are we going to get like, we're going to get the spaceship crashing down, we're going to get Jonathan and Martha finding the baby, and then of course we're going to get we're going to get a montage of him learning his powers and all this stuff. But I love the fact that you just went, nope, grown up on the boat.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember, I was patting, to my friend, and I was going, dude, we're now present day. This is great because we've seen that before.
Yeah. And we get a little bit of it in the flashbacks.
Yeah, of course. But
like right out of the box, we were like,
because
that cut to the crab boat.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew we had the shot of it.
Yeah.
Landing on the wave.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's
perfect.
That's a good
way to do it because we're seeing that.
Look,
we're like,
that's the Kent Farm too.
Oh yeah. It's like, we're gonna do it, and then it goes right to this, and you're like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on right here? And I'm like, oh, this is great. Then we got Clark just like greenhorn on the, there he is. Yeah, I love it. I love the greenhorn line.
This was funny because when we were shooting this, I don't know if I might have said this story before, but when we were shooting this, we were like, it was off of Vancouver Island, and we were shooting, and when we were in the cockpit during that sequence where they're like, give me the binoculars, that it's coming right up. I remember we were in the cockpit and I was watching, I had like a handheld monitor and I was like, are we going too close to those rocks over there? That shouldn't be my job, right? Like to monitor how close we are to the rocks.
Yeah, there should be somebody else handling that.
I'm trying to do the
you're trying to direct a movie.
The movie part, but I feel like we're going close to the rocks. I remember the captain of the ship go, oh shoot, the actor knocked the autopilot, he shut it off with his knee by accident. This guy, and so he goes, oh no, we might hit the rocks, and then they had to drive us away.
Wow.
Yeah, this guy knocked the.
That guy did.
That guy knocked. It wasn't his fault, but it was pretty funny.
Happens.
I was like,
but I always found it funny too because when Clark gets knocked over by the guy, it's almost like Clark had to. Like, if he saw the guy coming, he had to, actually do it. Because, obviously, if he were to knock into Clark, he would just bounce off.
If he didn't know,
Like the Batmobile.
Exactly.
So he had to, kind of give into that.
He had to, hide himself.
Exactly. That's what I always liked about that. He had to give into that little knock right there. And then this right here with the...
These guys.
Gotta save them.
These Coast Guard guys were hilarious because we had real Coast Guard guys.
Did you?
Yeah, that was a real Coast Guard helicopter that we landed on this set we built. So that whole, Arctic, Bright Arctic or whatever it's called, the heliport. We built that in a parking lot in Vancouver, and then so I was in the helicopter. So these shots were done, on a
show those abs.
Yeah, that's good. on a camera ship. This shot right here is for real, right? That. It looks like a full CG, but it's a real helicopter, lifting off of that.
Yeah.
Off of the and we also built that piece of I-beam that bends underneath.
Was part of Henry's audition was to yell like he does in this movie?
No, we should have.
Because he yells very well.
He has to do it.
I love the struggle that he has because even Superman struggle.
Yeah, that was a heavy thing.
It was a heavy thing.
Yeah.
Superman.
Well, that was the thing we talked about also. At what point, what level are his? How strong is he?
Yeah.
He's evolving, right?
Yeah.
So, how much power does he have? Can he lift a giant ship up over his head?
Exactly.
Maybe not. Not at this point.
We don't know yet.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And so, if he thinks it's heavy, it's probably heavy.
It is, yeah.
But if he, in his sort of learning.
And I think that's what you emphasized was the fact that he can struggle with something like that, and then to immediately flash back to when he's struggling with his powers here as a kid. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love this. I love this
cool.
right here too, especially when Diane Lane comes in.
See, that's in you see him just starting his X-ray powers. He can sort of see through the walls. He's a
because you have to imagine growing up and trying and all this. Obviously when you're growing up and you have all these senses that are just showing you all kinds of things. And Diane Lane of course just kills it right here.
Yeah. By the way, Diane Lane, love her so much.
Yeah.
She's a
fantastic.
Solid presence throughout.
The world's too big, Mom. That line.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I remember that was one of the main things when I read the script originally. And I read this scene. I know it,
Yeah.
Because it felt relatable. Because I think the thing with Superman, the danger with him, of course, is always is he not relatable? It's so powerful that we don't care.
Yeah.
Because there's a chance that when you watch him, this guy can fly, he has no problems.
Yeah. So everybody looks at him like this god. But
yeah.
It's but he's he's
what are his struggles? Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that
really emphasized.
That was really such a strong part of what David was able to get to.
I think Jason Momoa is over
Jason's right there.
Yeah, you
right
see him?
Frame.
There's something right there. I saw some hair. Saw some of his hair flowing. Yeah.
He called the whales.
And I love, and the song that you use right here, Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
I love this song. That riff, that is just so perfect. I love that song. And I love Chris Cornell. But yeah,
I remember when we were shooting this, I took that B camera.
Look at that beast.
Bill Daglish and I took this B camera and we were running around shooting all these out of focus shots. I just said, okay, let me just shoot cool out of focus shots of some shenanigans, details, the bucket with the water in it and all that. I was just on the side while everyone was getting ready. I was like, oh, here, give me the camera while we're waiting. And I remember thinking, they were saying those shots are never going to be in the movie. But they're literally the trailer of. Also, the trailer is
had those.
The first trailer is only those shots. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Trust me.
It set the mood, man.
I was like, trust me, this is cool.
Yeah.
I was always if I can get an out of focus shot in a superhero movie on purpose, then my work here is done.
Yes, exactly.
It's literally true.
Perfectly succeeded right there.
Like I shot that shot out of focus.
And then we got the dick splash line, which everybody likes. The dick splash.
Dick splash, yeah.
Was that Goyer
about
who
as
wrote
far
that?
as you can go. Yeah,
Yeah, that was
about as far
Goyer.
as you can go PG-13.
Yeah, right.
And this was like an early stunt we did.
Is it?
Yeah, crashing
Okay.
this.
I love how you had the stop come out.
Crashing this.
Real quick. Yeah. Just a
Crashing
little
this-
comedic moment
Yeah,
when
it's
this
funny.
is happening.
Crashing this bus into the river was a little bit of Mike Justice making a little dual appearance.
Nice.
Because he's the giant guy. He's the giant guy.
So I always forget his name too.
Or-
Yeah, I know.
I forget his name.
But
He's that guy too. He's that another dual.
You know what we're
role.
talking about.
I was also saying like Sam Wynn. She's probably the only named character who plays two parts in the DC. Right?
It's true, right?
Because
She was-
she's here and she's also
So, in Justice League,
and she's also on Themyscira.
Themyscira, there we go.
Yeah.
She's an Amazonian too.
These kids were awesome because we shot this in Vancouver in the tank. And we had that bus on a hydraulic, and we had to like submerge it. And those kids had to like they couldn't, like it was a little bit sketchy.
Yeah.
Right? They were like, okay, we're gonna drown these children.
All right, hey, all right, action.
Yeah, let's sink the bus.
Yes.
Guys, don't drown.
Yeah, please
and
don't.
The way we did it was, you can't tell, but the edge of the bus is right. We cut the bus in half. So even though it looks like they're like, I can't breathe, like they only, it was like 1 foot for them to like. pop their
To
heads
get
out.
yeah.
So
Safety.
it's pretty.
Don't worry.
Pretty crazy.
No children were in danger, people.
No, they weren't
It's
in
fine.
danger.
We're fine. Not even this bully right here.
Not in true danger. Not in true danger.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. We got some good stuff from Kevin Costner.
Yeah, this swing was always like iconic to me.
Yeah.
Having this swing be sort of because we use it again later on as this. And I think I took a bunch of Polaroids of it.
Yeah.
Because I loved it so much.
Because we see it in Justice League.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the house, was built in Illinois, and there was kind of a piece of the farm. Like some of that stuff was there. The house itself we built, and it was there. We kept it there for both weeks.
Yeah.
And then we built it again in England for Justice League because we built the Kent farm on out in a field in England for Justice League.
Yeah. I remember you talking about working with Kevin Costner.
No, he's the best.
Jeez.
Kevin is so kind and really again super intuitive.
Yeah.
And really, you are my son.
Oh God, that line just.
Yeah, and I think that for Kevin and for that moment, he knew that's where he was going to go.
Yeah.
Right. And so even all of this is headed toward that moment. He knew, and we talked about it a lot. We shot this in 2 days.
Really? 2 days.
Because we in this low light, it took us.
Oh yeah.
It took us 2 days to get it because it was a little bit tricky because the sun was almost going down, and so we cross shot that little sequence.
I mean, you got a father that's saying basically it's like, hey, should I let those kids die? And he's like,
maybe.
I mean, geez.
Yeah,
and that sets up, of course, the
I love that
tornado scene a little bit.
Yeah, I do love the maybe.
Yeah, and the way that he delivers it too, because he doesn't. It's almost like he doesn't want to say it, but then he's just, But then he's just the way that he says it.
No, I know, and that's what I think is so.
Yeah.
But that's what the sort of, I don't want to say the sort of intense of what what he was able to bring to it, as far as what a real father would feel about his real son, about protecting his son, but also protecting potential world change power that this kid has, and it's really sort of they're gonna be afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't want to stick needles in you. But yeah, the line right
They
there.
can find needles that will actually.
I know,
penetrate
exactly.
your skin, yeah. But they probably can't. That's cool.
Unless they're made of kryptonite.
True, Kryptonite Needles. Good. It's the name of my rock band. Kryptonite Needles.
I think we're going to start a band. It's going to be called Kryptonite Needles. Everybody.
I like it.
Yeah.
I
I'll be
that.
on drums.
Oh, is that your deal?
Yeah, that's my deal. Well,
That's
yeah,
cool.
I remember DJ. Yeah, DJ.
And
He's a
DJ
drummer.
also, yeah, he's a drummer.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. He's a drummer. Yeah. Yeah. This. Oh,
There
that
it
line
is.
right there.
Yeah.
Even not even hearing it, I'm like.
You are my son. I don't know if you're watching at home. That's where we are right now.
That's where we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very intense.
So I'm watching it. Sorry.
I know it's hard not to.
This was an
Especially with that
interesting little prop and a little sort of concept. Teeny little
little key.
Yeah.
Oh, we got the We got the dive bar scene.
This is a great beat.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's Allison.
Allison Crowe, right?
That's when I met Allison.
Oh, yeah.
No,
See, what we were going back to.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously.
They've had some nights together.
Something happened between those two. I feel like it's pretty...
Yeah,
and then
he emphasized it. That little smile right there doesn't say.
It feels pretty.
It's not just a little.
It's not
flirt.
just like
hey, watch out, watch. I like how Henry delivers like all this right here.
This is so fun.
Yeah,
this was fun to do. This is like literally like a wish fulfillment scene. Like
is it?
You always want to see like Superman trying to not like trying to not show that he's like
powerful.
Superman.
That he could,
but also. It's like when someone you always love it when someone underestimates like a guy that could like literally rip your arms off and like death with them.
Just the restraint that he has right now, and the way that Henry is like portraying that in his eyes. It's in the eyes. Again, it's always like the eyes right there, and then he's just like,
you can just like reach into the guy's chest.
Yeah, and just pull it. Yeah, exactly. And then that right there.
Throw the can. That's it.
Yeah, just think.
Now I'm gonna have to fuck your truck up.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry,
all right.
I want to swear.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it quietly though.
I'm gonna do it super quietly because I can.
Yes, exactly.
This is cool. And by the way, we built this truck like this.
Did you?
Yeah, this is like.
Oh wow! So it's not VFX. It's
that's not VFX. So we had we had it in the parking lot like that. It's crazy. The sparks weren't happening, but the rest of it.
Yeah, where's that statue? I mean, we got all the other statues. Come on, Weta Workshop.
Yeah.
Where's that?
Yeah. You shouldn't hitchhike. It's dangerous.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not a good idea. Not a good idea. Oh, here we go. Here she comes.
And then we had the big Sikorsky up on this kind of mountain. We had to move everybody up there. A lot of helicopters.
Yeah. There she is.
Yeah. And then Amy's
powerhouse.
Just powerhouse. Yeah.
Just a total powerhouse.
Look at that. Not very.
And I love that. That was her first meet right there.
Yeah.
And it's just so quick. She has no idea that I just got brought down by the love of my life right there.
Also, the thing that's cool is I was like, make sure like she should feel super light.
Yes. Yeah. Again, going back to when he had to like fall down with that guy tackling him, he's got to like fake it like, oh yeah,
I guess this is what a person
I could literally do that with my pinky.
Yeah, like if a person weighs this much, I don't know, like a sack of flour. I don't know like what people weigh.
See? Yeah. There's
how often does he like carry people?
There's a Superman series right there. How often does he have to think about
it
weight?
Picks things up,
yes, and be like, I can't. If I just lift this water bottle, I can literally just.
Yeah, person weighs the same as a what?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of calculations, and then what's his? I can't remember his name. Chris
Maloney.
Yeah, Maloney. Yeah, he's great.
Oh yeah,
I love him.
These guys measuring dicks.
Yeah, if you guys are done measuring dicks.
Yeah. Really?
But then, of course, he kind of gets like the last one when he goes like, she goes, where do I pee? And she goes, oh, there's a bucket right in the
Yeah,
toilet.
he gets her a little bit.
Yeah, he gets his little zinger right there.
He does touche her.
Yeah.
But it's pretty great. And then, of course, this guy was in Watchmen, right?
Yeah.
This guy.
That guy right there?
He's the Mars guy.
Okay.
Remember when he's like, where's Dr. Manhattan? Mars. He's the guy that comes and says,
oh, okay.
And and that's why we have Mars on his screensaver later.
Ah, little Easter egg right there.
Yeah, there's a bit of an Easter egg.
I like that. Okay.
It's in the scene.
It's somewhere on the screen.
It's later on. It's when they come back when he's asleep. When he's got his feet up. And he runs outside.
And it has Mars on the.
It has Mars. Yeah, that was a Watchmen homage.
That's awesome. I love that.
Because we shot that movie. Oh look, there he goes again. Yeah. She's really having a lot of run-ins with Clark.
Yeah, and she has no idea. No idea.
Yeah, there's a bucket in the corner.
Yeah, I love that line. There's a bucket in the corner, so he got his in right there.
Rude.
And she's just like, okay, I'll give that to you.
And there's a little bit of a Nikon commercial here.
A little bit.
I remember Nikon, I can't remember whether they gave us cameras or kind of this feeling they didn't. Still,
yeah.
Maybe they did actually.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being rude.
Yeah.
If you
look,
wait, look, where is he?
Where is he? He's like over there somewhere, right?
She's gonna zoom in on him. What's that?
Yeah, he was like over, to the right. Yeah, to the right.
Yeah, there he is.
Just chilling.
Just walking.
Walking with a long sleeve Henley.
Yeah, he's got a Henley on. By the way, it was a little cold for a Henley.
I'm sure it was.
What is going on with this guy? We built this set. This was a cool set because it had this it had this little ledge on it. And look at that's a little hairy down in the ocean there. But it was fun. It's always fun to have like a weirdo cliff set inside of a stage like that, right there. Because there's a camera, the crane, and then into that little tunnel.
Good shot.
He bored with his X-ray with his.
Oh, is that okay? Yeah. So he just.
That's why it's perfectly round. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And then, of course, we see that right there. I love that shot. That's such a cool shot.
So he's like, oh, yeah. And Henry always like that. Like, he always got a little, like...
Yeah, like a little head rush.
Like wow.
Yeah.
Like I can't just do that constantly.
It'd be funny if he was like...
I remember this doodle. This was like one of the early doodles I did. And I always loved that Alex used that, like, super, like, weirdo Art Nouveau, like, style for the dropships and stuff.
It really makes it...
For the Kryptonian, like,
makes it
design.
very alien-like,
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Wow.
This is like his first time.
And then we get our first, we hear Carla Gugino, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, I think we heard Carla
probably early on
Krypton.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she, of course, fantastic.
Oh, my God.
She's great.
Best. I love Carla. Anything with Carla is going to be.
I know. I still remember the whole Catwoman.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, that could have been really good. What a fit. And then I love this too because he doesn't know exactly like what is this? What is happening? And then he kind of gets hurt right here.
Yeah, because it's got from his home world. Which he's probably really never experienced. In theory, I mean, if you want to really theorize, because those materials are Kryptonian.
Kryptonian, so
you would think that they would
I see what you're saying right there.
I mean,
Okay. Not to just fully put it out there, but
something to think
about.
That's why it gives him a little gash on the arm.
Yeah.
Then this was always fun. We built this cool bridge, of course.
Yeah. And then, of course,
Dad's
get Russell Crowe back, and he's like, "What?
That's weird.
Hi? Who?
He's a ghost. He's haunting." I always did like the idea that
it is a cool idea. I mean, because obviously, when we've seen that before, and we had the crystals before when it came to Donner and everything, and that's how we communicated. But I like the idea that it is kind of like he's haunting this ship.
Yep.
Here we go. Up. Empty pod. We're getting it. Yeah, that shot right there is haunting.
That's scary. Of course, a ripoff from Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I was always obsessed with that. That shot when I was a kid, I was scared shitless by that image of when they in the original Planet of the Apes when they crash and then he looks and one of the chrysalises had cracked and the person had aged inside of there because they'd been seen for
forever,
thousands of years or hundreds of years. Yeah, that always freaked me out. So I thought we would do here.
That's pretty cool. I didn't even think about that. That's great. And then of course,
and then he's gonna crush this thing.
Yeah,
we had it cool because we had this like weird it was like a tin.
Yeah, that he had to hold on to.
Yeah, like a thing that he could compress. But it didn't look like that. It looked like a weirdo.
Yeah,
just like a weird parade thing.
Yeah, was it green or anything? Or it probably had green on there. And I like this right here too because. Again, Henry is just like the way that he delivers it right here, and how he's just like, "Hey, I got to cauterize it. Sorry, this is going to be painful."
Yeah,
yeah. But it's Lois. She. But I like. Ugh. But all of us kind of went. Jeez, that scream that she has right there.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Oh, here it is.
Here it is. That's the Mars thing that you're talking about. It's coming. It's coming.
When he looks up, there it is.
Yeah, right there. Yes. Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Mars.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
If you look closely, you see like a little blue guy just sitting down right there.
We talked about it, I think.
Did you think? Yeah, did you? Oh, that would have been cool. If there was if he was just sitting there. That would have been sweet.
Well, all right, so I guess that was 20 minutes, so we're going to, or longer.
Yeah.
We're going to take a small break. And guys, continue watching the movie, and we'll come back in a few minutes, and we'll watch a little bit more. So it's break time.
It's break time.
But don't pause it.
Don't pause it.
All right, cool.
All right.
Good. Awesome. Welcome back, guys. We're still in the middle of the motion picture. And Steve, you want to say hello? Oh, look, there's Christina.
I was just talking to her. Wild this is 10 years this year?
I guess, 10 years ago this year.
Full circle then. That's a big circle.
It's literally a big circle.
Is that probably not the... How is that circle, that 10 years compared to like what you anticipated while you were making this?
I guess that's interesting. Yeah, I never really thought about it. Like if you had asked me then, like in 10 years, what do you think will be happening? I probably would have said, I don't know what I would have said. It's an interesting, what I thought, would we be into another Superman movie by now or some things like that? Probably. Mm-hmm. I would have thought that at the time. Although I did have this crazy idea that we'd be expanding the universe a little bit, evidenced by the, LexCorp oil truck and the
All the Easter eggs.
Wayne Industries, satellites and whatnot. So yeah.
How much of that was that stuff that you were planting as seeds for? Obviously, those that can go anywhere, or like how long? At what point did you know that this is like a 5-part kind of arc that you were putting
It
together?
was right after this. Like I had made some notes about potentially what I wanted to do, and so I tried not to contradict any of that in this movie. And I think it was just this was a fairly long shoot, so I had a lot of time to kind of think about how we would manifest some of those ideas. And so I think I had a pretty good handle on how not to mess it up. I guess is that
That's not fair.
Does that make sense? Because as you're forming it, like you would have to like not go down a road or enter some kind of introduce some sort of canon that would not be fulfilled or is contradictory to like what the potential outcome of the movie is. Obviously, yeah. I mean it seems obvious.
Yeah.
But when you're when the real goal in this case was the sort of establishing this continuity. That was even in this sequence we were in the Nightmare Superman sequence. I don't know if you're following at home. Zod's at the Kent farm right now in his black suit with the flapping laundry behind him. And he's telling sort of the little bit of the flashback story to how he got to us.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because that's where Superman, you get the kind of the black suit in that scene, and it's a nightmare, but a little bit different than like the nightmare.
Correct.
Like post-apocalyptic.
Correct.
Is there any sort of a continuity to the thinking behind that?
Well, I mean, look, it was an inspiration certainly to the what would become this nightmare reality of the of what would be the Justice League continuity. I always loved this shot of Zod exploring the other colonies.
Speaking of shots that scream, show me more of this.
Yeah. I always thought that this was a crazy world.
Yeah, I love those suits.
All the drop ships and the suits, and that's really cool. Yeah, and even just the sort of world engine spaceship. I don't even know, world engine spaceship / prison barge. It's kind of a cool combo. And then just this kind of exploration of the Kent farm. It's funny because we shot all this on stage, right? So we had shot a lot of, or all of the actual Kent farm stuff at the Kent farm, but this sequence we were like, oh, let's do this on stage because we wanted to have that just slightly surreal sort of quality to it, and I think it worked really well.
Yeah, is that the background then? Is that actual from Plano?
I think they had done a scan of Plano, so all the scale was correct, but it was all then generated. It wasn't photographed.
Actually, I got my driver's license in Plano.
No, you didn't.
I lived in the Chicago suburbs, and the line is way faster at that DMV. So we went there.
That makes sense.
So I almost came out to check it out, but I was busy when you were there.
Was that when we were shooting?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Well, not when I got the driver's license, but
we were close by.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I still have a couple of those skulls in the house.
How many actual skulls are in that shot?
I stole a bunch of them. I think we had a couple hundred.
Oh, wow.
That wasn't a small amount. Because all of that, him going down, we had like a rig where he went down, and those were real skulls that he went down in. I mean, real. They're made of foam, but...
Harvested the skulls to...
Yeah, but then I grabbed a couple. You got to grab a couple skulls.
Yeah.
They're easy to grab.
It's an evocative shot.
Yeah, it's cool. I think that the thing that's interesting about even just sort of the mythological expansion, Superman expansion, I think one of the cool things about this technology of the spaceships and the environments, Alex really did an awesome job kind of creating like an alien world, but also not, making it too crazy where like you couldn't relate to it. That's always the challenge with sort of sci-fi worlds, that they're not completely so abstracted that they're that they're not. You don't know where like people fly the ship from or any of that. I thought it was a really good mix.
Yeah, it's a good sci-fi fantasy, but also kind of a believable evolution of.
Yeah, I think that's tricky. We built this. This location was inside of a derelict. It was like a child prison, not a prison, or like a detention center for kids. It was defunct in Vancouver, and then we turned it into the NORAD or whatever it is. No. I thought it was, and then interesting, like those little breathers. Oh, there's Sam Wynn. Then we were just talking before about the fact that she shows up again on Themyscira, but that as a different character.
Yeah.
And then we were trying to figure out maybe if she's the same character.
Well, I know there was
that's
rumors or theories that there is some Kryptonian lineage in the Amazon since the Kryptonians
There absolutely
crested.
is. There absolutely is.
Oh, yeah?
I do believe that wherever the chrysalis escaped from the chrysalis on the scout ship ended up briefly in Themyscira.
Oh, interesting.
And some of their maybe that's the great grandfather of.
Yeah, so the same.
That would be cool.
House of Wynn. Yeah, she had a great scene in Justice League too.
Yeah.
That was restored in the right version, so that was awesome to see.
Yeah, that's fun. We were talking about also earlier about how the interesting thing about Justice League, and we'll talk about it more, but that the shot in 143 and shot specifically for it was my vision or my dream to have that movie shown in IMAX, and that it was shot in that aspect ratio because of the IMAX screens, the big IMAX screens, not the rectangular, but the classic IMAX film aspect ratio. And so it's exciting that we're getting to see the movie in that aspect ratio because you think about like, okay, we made the movie, and a movie gets seen in, as a director, you want the movie to be seen as you envisioned it by the most people, I guess. And then as you go forward, you make the movie and and that movie in particular, which never really played in the theater, but was designed for theater, you would say like, oh, well, you see it at its height, it would have been released on, whatever that is, 3,000 screens plus in a non-COVID, non-bizarro scenario that our film was released in. So you have that sort of concept. And then on top of that, you would say, okay, so in my heart, I was like, oh, we knew we'd have however many IMAX theaters there are that have the correct aspect ratio or capable of projecting in the 143, which is like, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's not many. So I was like, okay, so I'm making this film basically for those theaters. It will be seen in other theaters, but that will be a version of how I want it to be played.
So for a wide release then, if that had happened, would that have gone out? Because like they'll do this sometimes for like Chris Nolan will do this where it'll be a 166 for theaters and then 133 for IMAX.
It would have been 166 in the theaters. That was the compromise that I was going to make. I said, look, I'll make it 166 for the theaters, even though I got a lot of pushback, even just initially in conversations about it being 166, because they were like, oh, well, it's not really supported by all the distributors, and that's kind of difficult. But everyone in the end was like, okay, I guess as a compromise, 143. They were like, geez, I don't know how to do that. I think. I'm trying to think of recent films that were in 143. I know Ghost Story was in 143, and there was a couple.
Lighthouse, I think was.
Lighthouse, yes, exactly. And those were general release. But like on a few theaters. So you would have had to. The one thing that's difficult is the crop, right? Is a hard mat for 143 because literally very few theaters have the ability to bring in the hard mat all the way to that dimension. I think there's a couple, but it's difficult. Anyway, in my mind, I was like, okay, so the number of people that will have seen the film in its intended format and correct aspect ratio and everything would be it's going to be not a large number, because it'll only be whatever number of IMAX theaters can show it in that aspect ratio. That was during principal photography. So I was thinking like, it's cool to make a movie of this scale that is designed literally for this boutique experience. Everything else is a slight compromise, right? 166 is a slight compromise, but it's cool. But that giant IMAX format is what I really wanted people to see it in, and really the real intention of the movie, and the number of people I knew, even in its widest release, that were going to see it that way would be a fraction of the general audience, but still thought it was the best way to see it. And it was my intention to promote, if the film was ever released in IMAX, to promote the movie as this is the best way to see the movie.
Yeah, they always see it the way it was meant to be seen.
See it the way it was meant to be seen. To date, the number of people who have seen the movie in the correct format is probably less than 20 people in the world, right? So this movie, this gigantic movie, ridiculous scale, everything about it, actually seen in an actual IMAX theater in the correct aspect ratio on the big screen is probably less than, I would say probably 18 people have ever seen the movie. So that's the exciting thing about what we're doing on Sunday, seeing the movie Universal City Walk, is that number will grow to like whatever 300 and what it is, but still a ridiculously small number
as a percentage of the total, whatever that total number is.
If you think about what the movie costs and what it does and the whole thing, it's literally a bizarro phenomenon that probably, it's a story that I've never heard talked about in the insane, exclusive,
the legend of the Snyder Cut,
exclusive coterie of humanity that has seen the movie actually in its intended format is pretty crazy. But anyway, that's an aside. We can talk more about that at some other point after we see it. And this was funny because when we shot this scene, we had a miscue on do you see how that whole kind of canopy fell down behind him?
Yeah.
I think when we were shooting it, we had, in the 7-Eleven, we had a cue for canopy. And I think the cue was canopy, but the guy operating it, his name sounded kind of like Canopy. And so when we yelled out, I think we yelled at the guy's name and he thought it was Canopy, so he pulled the canopy and it fell. And it was only we could only do I think we only had one take. And then I was like, oh my God, okay, awesome. So then we had to they kind of jerry-rigged it back together and we got one more take out of it, but it was completely, DJ had to fix it with,
well, I don't think anybody ever noticed until you just pointed it out. So
that's why there's fire all over it. So they were like, "Oh, put fire on it." He wants.
So, did you spend more time with Michael Shannon on this, saying a little more or a little less? As far as his performance goes.
Yeah, Shannon. I don't know. No, Shannon comes out of the box pretty on point. I don't know if there's a more or less. It's more about. I think if you give him my notes to him, would mostly just be about remember this thing we talked about, this idea, So he'd be like, okay, cool, right, I got it. That's a thing, a subtext that he could work.
Well, because he's a meme for this movie for some of the lines that he just yells, but then also a number of his best lines in this are just completely understated too. So he's got the full spectrum of Shannon is in this.
Yeah, you really do. Shannon show.
Well, the Western.
Yeah, a big fan of the A-10 as an aircraft.
Yeah, not
to have it in the movie.
Namek does not like it so much, though.
Namek A-10.
No, you see, they replicated that shot in the Flash movie. He's got a trailer where Namek jumps out of the Batwing. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I saw the trailer the other day, but I didn't look at it. I got to analyze it.
Yeah, everyone's like, that's the exact same thing, but it's Keaton's Batwing though. So I was like, that's a great homage to this fight. Do you, when you got this all charted out, do you have a clear point where this second act ends and the third act begins. I feel like every time I watch this, I feel like every time I'm watching this, at some point I'm like, oh wait, this is just kind of full volume for the next hour.
It does roll pretty hard for the next hour. It's one of those things that I think when we were editing the movie or talking when it was finished, and we would say like, oh, once Smallville battle starts, it's pretty much on. Mm-hmm. You're pretty much rolling to the end. You could
and it sneaks up on me every time.
What's that?
It sneaks up on me every time.
Smallville battle.
Because you think it feels like it's there's going to be a lull or something, and as you transition into the final battle, and then you realize like it just you pack it wall to wall.
Yeah, the only kind of downbeat is when Martha's looking at the photo album for a second.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, all right, I gotta go. It's like right after this, right?
Mm-hmm. But
then he zooms out, so it's not very long. Yours cool. This fight was cool, and even just developing, the notion of like how they would in the fight. Oh, there's a safe door.
Oh yeah.
So that, of course, was our first look Superman shot, right? I shot with the Polaroid camera right there on that safe door, and I just had this. I don't know. For some reason, I had it in my head that like Superman smashed into a safe door was a cool like first image of him.
What's an impressive thing to bend?
Yeah.
If you like that's a crumpled car is not a safe door kind of makes a point.
Yeah, like the size of that safe is pretty like legit.
Yeah.
And I think that was the notion that I had. Also, that it's made of steel.
Yeah.
I guess.
The Man of Steel.
Steel on steel.
I see what you're going for.
Yeah, exactly. I thought this was a cool Sears ad there.
Yeah.
Because Sears was one of our sponsors, and they were asking like how the store would be shown, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be cool. Yeah. You're gonna see it really a lot of it. And
how about you're in the background?
I didn't know it'd
the
be
crap
like,
out of Superman.
We're gonna throw a train into it. I don't think they knew that. They were like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. But you get good shots of the logo. I always love that. We built when we built that, we built like a train and we slid it in there, and it was really. That was a cool set, with the train in there.
You built a train, as in?
It was just like a set piece that we kind of drove in to the, into the Sears.
Oh, okay.
After it hits it. It's cool, like U-Haul. That was another one of our sponsors.
You got a lot of them in here.
Yeah. Oh, snap.
And a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, Ben does a good reaction there. And then Chris, all those shots, of course, we did in the parking lot, flying. But not flying.
Yeah.
I always thought that DJ did a great job with that crash, the helicopter crash.
The blades continue spinning.
Blades into the ground there. It's all CG.
That's awesome.
This is good fighting.
This is the famous one. Everyone was like
famous, what would really happen if humans fought Kryptonians? You know what I mean? Like that's pretty much it.
Well, it was also one of the first visualizations where people say like, oh, that like anime style can kind of be brought to live action. People didn't think that could really be done until.
Yeah.
This happened, and then everyone was obsessed with that forever.
Yeah, I always liked that idea that like people for so long, we've seen Superman fight bad guys, human bad guys, and then and no one, what I mean, no one really ever thought about the reality of what that might be, or not that they didn't think about it, but we never really saw that, And even in our movie, we don't, because you can hear it in there. Even in that. Even in this, our Superman doesn't really fight humans.
Right. Well, it's not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's kind of how I feel about it. But Fiora's fine to fight humans, right? Because she's not.
Right. Not concerned about the collateral damage.
No.
Speaking of the sound, though, I think that's a really interesting thing that you're known as like a visualist, and if anyone talks about like your filmmaking style, are going to define it by the shots and the color and the lighting. But I think the sound is something that isn't really talked about as much, and arguably establishes the kind of vibe of the movie as much as the visuals sometimes. But that's not something you can really storyboard. Like at what point do you figure out what it's going to sound like?
Look, I've worked with this guy Scott Hecker for since Dawn of the Dead. He's been on all the movies. He's an amazing sound designer, and I'm a big fan of big sound. I always like it, and so I have no issue with really pretty intense and immersive soundscapes in the movies. We always endeavor to whenever we can, depending on the sequence, of course. Sometimes music drives these action sequences, sometimes sound effects, depending on what. Yeah, here's the train that we had in there. It's like that. But that's really the sort of personality of the scene comes across, I think, in a lot of ways, driven by the sound. Like you don't know what to. By the way, this cape shot, I was puppeting that cape shot. It was me laying on the side with like my.
It's very good puppetry.
Basically, just waving it in front of the lens, the cape. Yeah, obviously, I'm a big fan of like intense sound effects.
Yeah, well, it's so huge for the atmosphere. Like you can, it's establishes a level of gravitas that.
Yeah, it's the weight. Mm-hmm. It's literally. I think in this movie, it was literally a thing we talked about quite a bit. Like the sky was like, I really want everything to feel heavy.
Now that's such a big part of what you get with Zimmer and Hulkenberg. Also with they obviously there's great music, but also there's an ambient quality to a lot of their stuff that outside of just the like the actual score, which I know on Army of the Dead, Junkie XL did a lot of that too, where there's just a lot of you realize like, oh wait, that's actually the soundtrack that I'm hearing. That's not just it's a rumble. It's a
correct. It's not necessarily like a melody or a song that you can sing along to necessarily, but it's very much like a mood.
Yeah, and if you take it, like you wouldn't put your finger on it necessarily. I wouldn't. I mean, I'm sure you would, but if I was watching it until you remove it and you say, oh wait, something's not quite as not full.
Yeah, 100%. This is the
here's the moment
that beat that I would say is the only. This is their small rest. Yes, this was we always laughed at like, oh, I guess he has to go kill those cops because they're the only ones that know where he lives. Really, that he might be. That he might be Clark Kent. Because
that's something that I thought was always interesting, though. That it's never said explicitly, but the more you kind of think about it, not just in your movies, but in the larger mythos, it almost makes more sense for everyone in Smallville to know, and it's just a secret that they all keep because they know like Jonathan Kent knew. They all know that it's important to protect.
It's funny. It was a thing that I know that like in the canon it's like really protected, but I didn't spend a ton of time trying to protect it because like it's exactly as you say, like in a modern telling, the notion that he's wearing glasses so you don't know it's him is kind of ludicrous. So you have to like do a better job. You have to be a bit smarter with I think that was really the directive for us. And more to avoid in a weird way moments where that would be like him not being him is necessary. Yeah. Once he gets to Metropolis, it's kind of not as hard because Superman is more abstract. It's in the like person to person moment. I always thought this guy did a great job. He was like a day player. Superman. When he says call him Superman.
Yeah.
It was like the most thrown away thing in history, which I thought was super cool.
I love that shot too because that's where you got a similar daytime version of that when they find the kryptonite. Then in BVS.
Which we shot in Bora Bora. We went down there and picked that up in Bora Bora.
Now, did you have to do that?
We had to do it. It was really super hard.
Yeah.
To go down there and
just couldn't get the same shot on a stage.
No, you couldn't do it on stage.
Yeah.
We tried, but it just failed. So we had to go literally to Bora Bora and and just do some a few days just kind of contemplating the shots, what we would do. It was pretty hard to do that at the St. Regis. Or was it St. Regis? Yeah, I think it's the St. Regis. I think we were at the St. Regis. Yeah, but that was difficult. No, but it was. I'm a huge. Yeah, we had a great time doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, on BVS, we went. We shot that at the very end. We went down to Bora Bora after we were done with everything. We'd come back. Mm-hmm. We had actually been here for quite a while, and then we went down to Bora Bora to pick up those shots.
Well, because that's where
kind of a small crew.
We spotted. What's he credited as, the island scientist or because he's then in the scene with the kryptonite truck also.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh wait, the same guy has been following it.
He went with him back. Yeah.
So he got to go to Bora Bora too.
He got to go both. Yeah. he was this, what is his name? Shit. Anyway, but I remember talking about like him when he came to Aurora, because he was a stunt guy, stunt performer, and we were like, oh, that was cool. You did that day in Detroit. We also need you to come with us to Bora Bora. And he was like, what? Okay. So that was fun.
Going back to sound again, that World Engine. Is that a combination of, is that a specific mix of?
It was a huge
ambient
Hector, Scott, we did a bunch of, but we had it pretty early. He was working on it even from the start. And I remember him sending us all these different versions of it, constantly sending us different takes on it.
Yeah.
It was always, and then we evolved it, and then it got really.
Yeah.
It's funny because it became musical too, in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's like
it's rhythmic.
Yeah, it's its own thing.
And then that's such a big deal then. The way that Brent comes into BVS and Bruce's subconscious, and it's this traumatic.
Yeah.
And you imagine he's not the only one. That's like the whole world has this memory of this noise, just repeating.
Yeah, everyone's
so it's
triggered by that.
It's a very fitting.
This is always a fun bit.
When did you?
This is literally. I think that this was true. This movie was shot on film, and true bleach bypass, like real chemical process. For the looks, why the highlights are all washed out and all that. It's not digital.
Yeah, it's very, very tactile.
Yeah.
When did you start playing with the idea of Swanwick being Manhunter?
During it was during BBS really is probably when I joked about it because I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Because he never did anything that would contradict it, and also just the way Manhunter has been portrayed in his human form in the comics felt pretty good to me with like the way Swanwick exists in our. So I always thought that was a fun thing that you kind of get to kind of mess around with in your mind, like me and the guys, and just kind of saying, would that be funny? Would that be awesome?
Yeah.
And they were like, let's just do it. Why not? It makes sense.
It's great retroactively too, because it's one of those things where people go back and they start looking at these scenes to see how does that fit in.
Yeah.
And there's that shot where Superman breaks the handcuffs and walks up to the glass, and everybody steps back except for Swanwick. So
Yeah.
it's like, there's something there.
That's cool. See, I love that.
It's more of that cape porn.
Yeah, that's good, Keith. Amy in a jumpsuit is always cool. We were in this, so we built this cockpit. We had the real plane for a lot of it. We shot a lot of the interiors in the back of a real plane at Edwards Air Force Base. And then we built a cockpit, of course. Then we had the real cockpit. We had all sorts of different versions of this to do because this movie, we had DOD for this movie. So we got a lot of assets from them. But, it's always hard to work with the government.
Yeah.
And even especially to make a movie. It's hard. There's some things that they're like, they don't understand it.
So is the idea with this then that, because obviously you've got him earlier exploring other planets and they found the world engine and everything, so they obviously can't just go, he couldn't have just gone and terraformed Mars without coming and getting the codex first, right?
Correct.
That was the key to the...
Yeah, and by the way, I think, it became, for Zod, it became personal, right? He wanted to torture the people of Earth, because of what Kal-El's betrayal, what he would consider betrayal, of the people of Krypton. Yeah, there's more of that liquid geo. Look out. That's quite a defense mechanism. Well, I think we're going to actually wrap it up here so I can go and get ready for the live chat, Q&A after this movie. So get ready, stand by to head over to the Q&A. We're going to talk about all things Man of Steel and or whatever else questions everybody has. So thank you, and thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Really fun.
And how about this beauty theater at Art Center? It's so amazing that the kids have a great show their films and that the school has a place where directors can come, state of the art. And I remember seeing the designs, but this is actually so busy that this is the first time we actually saw it. It's so nice to be. And how's our folks at Vera? We're ready for live! Yay! Okay, so you guys just indulge me for a few moments here, but Zack and I wanted to say a huge thank you to all the people who have made this weekend possible, to our generous sponsors, to Warner Brothers in particular, Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi. To our gracious host for the next 2 days, Art Center College of Design. Our host for Sunday, Universal Cinema, AMC at City Walk, and IMAX. And to Vero for hosting our live stream. Eamon, we wish you were here. I hope you're watching. To Jim Lee, who did these amazing art for our t-shirts. And I hope I don't butcher their name, but Shu Jie Ho Zhang, an Art Center student who did the Art Center posters, and John Stanford, and works for creating all those amazing posters. To our printers, Midnight Oil and Buffalo Specialties, who also donated all the shirts. To Bonds, to Weta Workshop, to Company 3, to our food and beverage sponsors, Anheuser-Busch, La Pizzeria Company, Hot Jam, Sodexo, Superhero Charity, and 3 Ronin. And thanks to all our panelists, moderators, and you volunteers who really helped, setting all of this up. To AFSP for all their help and support, not only for this event, but also for their support for Zack and I, and also community throughout the years. And to Wesley Collar, because without Wes, this event would not have come together. Wes. We are so thankful to for all Wes's hard work and dedication, and most for the friendship. He is family. And most importantly, to the fans. A special shout out to everyone that is online around the world. It is truly amazing what this community has done, raising over $1 million for AFSP. But even more importantly, creating awareness and much-needed discussions on mental health, suicide prevention. This amazing fan community has contributed to AFSP to invest in research grants to better understand and prevent suicide. In the past 5 years, it has given 200,000 life-saving education through AFSP's Talk Saves Lives, Introduction to Suicide Prevention. This program provides a clear understanding of suicide and most up-to-date recent data on suicide prevention. Our fan has helped AFSP to advocate suicide prevention and mental health by sending over 129,000 messages to public over the past 5 years. Advocates had a chance to promote suicide prevention. As a testament to their efforts, over 109 pieces of legislation at the federal and state level has become law since 2008. Over the past 5 years, AFSP has hosted annually more than 400 international survivors of suicide lost day events. AFSP has also fulfilled over 1,000 requests, healing conversations. Both programs allow those touched by suicide a chance to talk, be heard. These are just some of the ways that this community has contributed to AFSP's life-saving. Now, more than ever, this work is critical, and post-COVID are staggering. 1 in 5 people in some. The latest CDC data tells us that suicide is the leading cause of death in the U.S. And although males make up 50% of the population, in 2020 and 2021, suicide deaths, and most alarming, our kids are struggling. Suicide is the third loss of death for adolescents, and our young girls are now more at risk than ever before. 2021 data from this study reveals that 3 in 5 girls felt sad, and more than 1 in 4 reported that they attempting suicide, and more than 1 in 10 girls reported that they attempted in 2020. And almost half of our LGBTs is devastating. The time to act is we must make mental health a priority and advocate for more investment in suicide and prevention on a national level. Everyone has a role to play in preventing and together and encourage those who struggle to seek help. We have shown that as a community, we can make a difference. Our actions have impact, but unfortunately, our job is far from done. So what else can we learn the signs of someone who reach out to someone who connect those who are struggling to help, share 9/8 suicide and crisis. With everyone's help, we can continue to move out of the darkness to the light. We can, if we're struggling, we can. Thank you again for all your, know that this is such a personal thing for Zack and I so much. If you need help or you can go to afsp.org or call or text 988 in crisis. And also if you want to donate, please go to afsp.org/full. Thanks again for
Thanks so much for that. The worthiest and other things. So, introduce everybody. I'll start with my own self. I'm Russ Lamana, chair of the undergrad and film departments here at Art Center College of Design. Next to me is the man who is responsible for a lot of the art you saw, Alex McDowell, and it's a pleasure. Thank you so much. You're kind of famous around. Oh yeah. So, thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to go here. This man is a director and a writer and a cinematographer, and I'm probably missing a few to the director. And he's so good at these things that he actually has a verse. So not too many people can make that claim. So thank you, Zack, for being here. And I think we'll have some fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So next on the list there, you may know her as Major Carrie Ferris, the first person to say officially, man, it's hot.
No one has ever argued with that statement.
Nobody ever went, not so much. Her real name is Christina Wren.
Thanks for having me.
And then down there at the end, someone else who mentioned, Deborah Snyder, who is an amazing force of nature, movie producer. What else can we? The real wonder. So thank you as well for being
happy to be here.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask a couple questions. They're kind of from the film students, and then or two from the streaming folks, and then we want to open it up to you guys to ask some questions. So think of some good ones. Stick your hand up. We'll call on you. We'll bring a mic over to you, and we're going to try to do more. So let's see how that goes. So I thought maybe I'd start with Alex, because in the green room watching the movie with the sound down, and I've seen it several times in a while. I'm just my mouth open because your Krypton, it kind of there's your Krypton now. There's no other Kryptons. It's like you really define that, and certainly define their ships and everything. It's just gorgeous. And then of course we've got you can segue into Smallville, which is just like classic, Rockwell Metropolis, which is kind of normal with a little overlay, and it all seamlessly works together. So the students wanted to know what your visual references were, if any, because I know you dreamt a lot of this up just for this world, literally world of.
Well, first, thank you for
so awesome to have you. Thank you.
Honor this cause, and amazing to see the movie again. It's been a while for me. So to your question, yes. I mean, first of all, to have a chance to redesign just the characteristics of the curves. First of all, the Superman S prompted the idea that there's no straight lines on. So as a designer, that was a underlying rule. So to go from that, we went the organic. There's the photographer Carl Blossfeldt, but it all came down to the S was to kind of build to go back in a world where the language and that premise really went down to the.
I have a question for Kristen. This is a very important process question about how the motion. I read that you were cast in Man of Steel because Zack saw you in and now
This is true.
I want to first just take a moment to picture Zack watching a show that would have a hummus commercial in it.
By the way, it was not a obscure hummus commercial. It was a national spot. And I was watching mainstream television. It was like some obscure hummus channel. We're like,
Hummus R Us.
Yeah, and then you were like, Debbie, find out who that is. And I was like, what? Yeah, find out who that is. I want her to be in the movie.
Thank you for doing it.
So what I want to know, Christina, is like, you're home, you're minding your own business, phone rings. Mr. Zack Snyder would like you to be in a Superman movie because of your work in a hummus commercial. How did that play?
So I was living in New York at the time, and funny enough, the commercial did not play in New York. So it wasn't like I never saw it, and I didn't. Yeah, so it kind of came and went for me. You know, I mean, I was happy to have a job. We filmed in Athens, but I was out of town. I was in the car with my then boy and now husband, and so I get this email. I just check my phone. And I kind of laughed in the car, and I was like, bullshit. And my family was like, well, what? They saw my reaction. I was like, someone made up an and this is ridiculous. And I had gotten an email from Kristen at Warner Bros. Some, nameless email that said, hi, Christina, Hollywood director and would like you to audition for an untitled Warner Brothers project. Please send us a tape of yourself doing that. And I was just like, this is someone really, I have a friend who made it and is just making so much fun of me. And thankfully, really, I was in the car with my family. They were like, you have to do it. You know, you have to. In the off chance this is real, you have to do it. So I, tape it, but it was 3 lines. I felt like an acting exercise from school that was an open scene. And I was like, okay, is this, and it was a different character. And,
wasn't the scene you coming into, I'm trying to remember this,
it was an office assistant.
Was it? I'm trying
Yeah.
Because I remember, and did you do 2? Did you do a second?
No, 5 of them.
Yeah,
That's what I remember.
Yeah, I remember
5 different takes.
It was 5 versions of the exact same line that were like this is the angry version. Yeah. This is and I was like, see, I told you she was a genius.
Really though, because I was like, I don't know what kind of movie this is. Is this a comedy? Is it a drama? And then I, get a different thing back. They're like, they actually want you to audition for her instead. And it was a military officer. But I went in. Yeah. But I was like, is this sci-fi? Is this So they very graciously watched a ridiculous amount of audition tapes. But yeah,
it was fun.
That's how it happened.
It's funny. I remember there's a line in the hummus commercial where you say, it's like this thing where there's this older Greek woman. Who whatever Christina's character is doing, which is normal, she sees as really offensive. There's one scene where she says something, she's like, she's a prostitute. And she's just being normal, but it's it was really funny.
I'm a Lebanese gal, so the very
it landed for you.
Used to.
It landed.
Yeah, and it's my character, whatever, is beautifully dressed and has a giant platter of thing, but all the grandma.
Yeah, even though she's not dressed like a prostitute at all, very conservatively dressed. Yeah, it's pretty. It's anyway. I don't know if it's online. Where is that commercial? Is it anywhere?
I have no idea. Yeah,
we should dig it up. We should definitely dig it up.
They're getting a lot of free press from you right now.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
Too bad we're not mentioning the name of the hummus. They're probably mad about that right now.
It was
Athenos. Well, there you go, guys. You know where to send the checks.
One of our other sponsors for the evening.
You are welcome, Athenos.
Thank you for my career.
Yes.
Kidding.
Anyway,
I got to see this.
All true. All true.
Kids,
I can't remember how I if I recorded because I remember I could I didn't have a DVR I remember years ago I think I should my phone so I could be oh, this is it. This is the commercial. Yeah.
And I had a really terrible blog. And this is how she told me later. Yeah, because I had start a blog. And so but it was because I didn't know what to do. Yeah. So.
Awesome.
And what an amazing job in the movie. Yeah. I was right.
You now know there are only that have you. And then there are way fewer. Wow, pretty amazing.
Wow.
So I think a lot of people don't understand the word producer, have you? But and so obviously, creative producer, and one, you define your role or roles. And then as a, I'd love to, what's your favorite part of the gig and what's kind of, so.
Well, the budget is kind of like going to the dentist because no matter how much money you have, it's never enough. Whether it's a movie or a big movie, it's never enough. And you always want, and those are hard to scale. I see my role right for that vision. And it doesn't mean we don't disagree about things because we do, but sometimes.
Occasionally.
Occasionally. But he's at the end of the day, the director, and it's my job. And we talk about it.
You're going to say at the end of the day, he just does what I say.
No. No, at the end of the day, like, I think it's important, especially in our relationship, not just being a husband and wife team, but as our relationship. And we might, like, debate and talk about things, but then we always have a unit. If we're going to studio or if there's something, whatever it is, or we're talking to, we have a unit. And I think and we have each other's back. I think that's everyone we surround ourselves with on a lot of people we've worked with for many years, we trust. And allowing them to actually job as well, but I don't know, my job is crazy because sometimes it's about like growing, like you become an expert on these really strange, but I think at the end it's about from casting to casting, figuring out the schedule, the budget, and then all things and problems that come along the way because every best laid plan redone in production. So you're always starting over and you just have to be nimble on your feet. But I love it. Like the thing that I like talking about, but like to be able to create that touch piece, them laugh, I feel so lucky to be.
Great, thanks. I mean, for those of you who haven't been on movie sets, just watch what an undertaking it is. I'm sure if the guys who D-Day came back, what Debbie does, they would go, "Oy, I'll leave that to you. That looks too hard." So anyway, I have a question for Mr. Zack Snyder here, and I apologize if you've answered this or I don't know the answer to this question. Students, what attracted you and particular character, and then what was the genesis that is so specific and so defining of? It's fascinating. It's been done differently. Where did that come from?
Well, thanks. Zach. Well, thank you, sir. That's kind. And also, the only thing I'll add to what Debbie was saying is that, we were talking about, when she was just talking about growing wheat, for the movie we just made, we had to grow a lot of wheat, space wheat.
10 football field,
yeah.
Right? Like,
it's space wheat.
10 football fields.
You put space in front of anything in a space movie. You say space and then the thing. Anyway, but we learned all that stuff on Man of Steel because we had to grow all that corn. So we were corn farmers before we were wheat farmers. And so, there was a lot of agricultural. Probably you didn't learn. You guys should have a class, maybe something to consider, like, just agricultural. So you have a little bit of like, oh, no, we can't start then. The corn won't be ready, of course. This is the wrong weather. It's the wrong, so as far as my attraction to DC characters goes, I've been a fan. I was a huge fan of a comic book called The Dark Knight. And when I was growing up, and also Watchmen, and not a bad comic book if you're into comic books. Anyway. And so, I just kind of had I had a relationship with Frank because of 300, and we had done Watchmen, and so we were kind of in this headspace, comic book headspace, and I had met Chris, and he had, I think, for whatever reason, Chris didn't want to do a Superman movie, and David had written this script, and so it was really a matter of him finding someone to Superman movie. He approached Debbie and I. He and Emma, we went to lunch at their house, and then we read the script, and I was like,
and we had a certain amount of time to read it. We would bring him out donuts, and then we all read it out loud.
Yeah, Wes and
Zack
Debbie.
And Wes, yeah. And then they took the script from us.
It was cool.
Secretive.
It felt very like, clandestine. We were reading some sort of secret document that we shouldn't have. But it was, and then I think from there, I kind of was like, well, this is what I would do. And Chris liked that. And that's kind of how the movie happened. And I think that for me anyway, the idea of like this sort of 5-movie arc, this sort of big giant, spinning of a giant universe evolved pretty quickly from the production of Man of Steel. Like as we were working on this, it really started to idea of really building out this giant for what this, because I was anxious to get to the Trinity, because the Trinity to me, universe is kind of like the tip of the spear, kind of like the most important, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman standing together in a world that makes sense to those 3 characters was really what I was really what it was all about for me. The mission to do that, I got pretty early in my mind as far as what the goal was step. And even like as we were doing this movie, Man of Steel, there's some little Easter eggs to LexCorp and to the Wayne industry satellite and things like that. And because I had it in my head that's what I would. And so how it's defined, like whether it is or how it, I guess the better way of putting it is like my intention was not to necessarily have a definitive or certain take, but it was just that I had the thing I thought would be cool. And that's all it is. It's not. And whatever that means, because like, look, we all know what's going to happen. There'll be another Superman and Batman origin, even than the one that's being talked about right now. There'll be one after that. And it is a cyclical thing. It's like some sort of Matrix universe where, they all end up in the architect's house and he tells them that like, no, you're not the first one. You're like the 10,000th one. So whatever, so that's cool. And I'm happy to be whatever the third in the series of 1,000. So it's fine. But the truth is, it's really interesting mythological, cyclical work that I find is fun to do. It's fair.
And so
I'll agree with it. I don't know if it's true.
Just briefly.
Probably the 8th is the best, but that's fine. Just some sort of number, but that's fine. But the 3rd is also not.
I'm trying to imagine. And you said, yeah, and Batman? It's like, it's going to be messed up. And they just go, okay, we're cool with that, Zach. Just let them be pissed.
I think the whole thing, my whole take on Superman is that obviously, my intention is not that angry. It's more that he's troubled by Earth because Earth is problematic for him. And the whole idea of Superman, sort of iconographic form, is that Superman, we were talking about it just as we were watching the movie, that, the potential is that he doesn't have any problems. He's a god on Earth and he can pretty much do whatever he wants. We don't have a lot to say. Which is Lex's problem with him. And by the way, Batman's problem with him. And so for Superman, the real work is to make him have problems, right? Like that's the work of whether it be romantic, the girl to like him that he likes, or whether it's like moral conundrum, his role is as far as interfering in the lives of or not, or all of the issues that, going against his father's wishes, all of this stuff. And also all the stuff that we all, in some ways, experience on a small scale as just humans. That's really the work of, because otherwise, as you can imagine, you could really fall into a space where Superman, unless you're really efforting to contrive scenarios where he is not, where he's doing things that are difficult, is where you want to be. You want to be where he is emotionally having to grapple with his own humanity. And I think that was the goal.
Thanks for that, because I think in a big way, you a big part.
Yeah. No, because in the end, if you can empathize with Superman, then you've sort of won that. You've made Superman relatable. I guess I think that was the hope.
All right, let us open this up for some questions from all of you all. See one right over here, Lily. Maybe stand up and we'll bring you a microphone so that they can. So you know what?
They have it and they left.
She's
cool.
actually at the pawn shop now
I'll
with the
walk
microphone.
up. You go, Ross.
I'm walking.
We can take this one.
I am
here.
Vanna Whiting.
More of a Phil Donahue, I think, but that's fine.
Hello.
Wes.
Thank you guys for
There he goes again, saving the day. Damn it.
check.
A blank check. I don't know. That's a good one. That's a good. What's up? Oh, ha. That's funny. I guess that's right. I mean, honestly, probably. Probably. I mean, blank check. I mean, you kind of, the scenario is pretty ludicrous, but I like it.
Isn't it
Question, thank you.
not necessarily about the times about content that, we have some smaller projects, even harder to get, because everyone wants the big blockbuster. So sometimes the smaller projects that don't take as much money are harder to actually.
Weirdly, that's true. If I go in and go like, look, give me $1 and I'm this thing, be crazy. Hey, that's cool. We definitely want that. Yes to that. But in the meantime, could you just do this other giant thing? If once that's done, for sure, yes, definitely do the $1 thing. That's great. But is there any way you could just first and then that? How's that? And I'm like, okay, fine. That's my own problem. What? Shoot it in the driveway. Shoot it with your phone. Yeah, I have no problem with that, by the way. I have no problem with that. It's with the movie, it's fun actually to sort of talk about, the idea that we did, the last two movies. When I was in commercials, I was a director cameraman. Which in commercials means director DP. And so it's funny because we did Army and I was like, okay, that worked pretty good. And then the movie we just did, shooting it was because it was much more of like a traditional, Army was all handheld and but this was really classic. It's a sci-fi movie. So everything has to be designed, all the lights. And it was really a super fun exercise. For me, it kept me really in the movie. Every aspect of I found that satisfying. But you can imagine that a smaller movie would require that same skill set. But now you're working with you've got. It would be fun to go.
Cool. Let's see. Wow.
Without a blank check.
They're popping up all over the place. This gentleman right, Lily, please stand up.
Okay, cool. Great. Man of Steel's my favorite movie.
Woo!
Saw it in theaters 10 years ago. Loved it. So my question is for Zack. And how long? And I know that the goal was to do it, but Carrie Ferris is, Hal Jordan. I was just wondering if you knew.
Okay. As far as I was just saying it on the stream inside that the conversations around Martian Manhunter started in post on Man of Steel. I mean, not on Man of Steel, on PBS. Because I was watching it, when we were watching the editorial, I was like, Swanwick, I don't know, but it's literally, we were talking about it earlier, if you look at when Superman goes to the glass in Man of Steel and everyone backs up except for Swan. And that was a choice by the actor. I was like, oh, cool. And I was trying to decide whether that was wrong, but I liked it. And I was like, no, that's cool. That's good. Yeah, do that. And I think that really, in retrospect, inspired this whole possibility. And I don't know what.
Jumping off of that, I was like, have you seen this? Did you know? No, it wasn't like a thing that chatted about on set, but it was cool. And I know Harry, it was so cool. Yeah.
Harry was very happy about it. Yeah. And he's also awesome. He's literally the coolest guy in the world. So, yeah, we should have had him out too. I think he's in New York, is it? Yeah, so. Although he might have flown out.
He would have. He's gonna be jealous. Yeah. Harry's so has just IMD everybody and so lovely.
I know, nor can I. And the voice is insane. We have to get him to do.
You don't have to. He'll just do it.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
That's
true. Just do Shakespeare. All right, so.
Wow, look at this.
Great question.
Let me go in the back because it's front. I see oh no, I'm sorry. He has a mask. Stand up, sir.
Hi, Zach. Okay, this is working, I guess. Yeah, so my question's for you. So Man of Steel and BVS were like the last time you released over 7 years ago, or yeah, about 7 years ago at this point. So like,
Yeah, I forgot about 3D. Yes, go on.
So with Avatar 2 kind of like reigniting like interest in that, I just wanted to ask you like, well, firstly, like if you've seen it, like how do you like it? And secondly, like what your thoughts on the format are overall, and if you like have any plans to shoot any movie like natively in 3D in the future, or like do any conversions or something like that.
Okay, that's cool. Cool 3D question. Avatar, awesome. Yeah, just loved it. That's cool. As far as 3D goes, do I have any plans to shoot anything in native 3D? No, I do not. I forgot about that format. I'll be 100% honest. It's cool to see it. I have no issue with it existing. I love it. But yeah, I don't know if I'm doing any 3D, especially native 3D. And Netflix is kind of hard for your 3D. Although I don't know, like, can they do that?
Strap two
TVs. Yeah.
Actually, you're flat. And we both shouted flat at exactly the same time. I actually remember that happening.
I think the best 3D, Guardians of Gaul is the best 3D movie. If you want, I mean, I don't know if that's even like if you could see it in 3D anywhere, but I remember seeing it going like, okay, yep, that's cool. That makes sense. Yeah. But, and you know, you said, what was the last 3D movie? Was BVS? Yeah. I don't know if I think I approved it in 3D, but I don't think I like watched it. I was too obsessed with like the special edition. So, like, yeah. Anyway. Alex, did we do anything? Did you do anything different for 3D? Did you think about the movie? I mean, because did we talk about it? We did have it. It was a 3D movie in our minds, but planning it. Yeah, well, that's true. It's a good point.
Everything is ready for 3D.
Even in 2D, it's 3D, I guess, is a good point. Yeah, that's what depth of field is for, isn't it? But yeah, because I remember I had a meeting with Jim Cameron. I think it was right before we did Superman, and he was wanting us to shoot the movie natively. He was saying, like, we're doing the movie natively in 3D, aren't you? And yes, Jim. That's a great idea. But then, you know, it was a film show, and I didn't know, that was problematic, to shoot a 3D film show because you need two cameras all the time. So that would have been, splitter. I guess even so. Yeah, that's hard. That would have been hard. And handheld. I didn't see that happening. It's like two Panavision Golds like through a beam splitter. That's a lot of but so yeah.
Are you all of that stuff?
Augmentation. I think the problem right now is people, and there's obviously, I think but we're looking at a lot of art of it at USC, and I teach world building and design, but I teach it to students, and so for them, they may not have the vision. Talk what's in them. So I think it has an almost potential. It's going to be embedded. But I think that, one of the things I believe is that we'll always survive AI because we make mistakes, and the intelligence is going to be as failure, the sense of the intuitive, and essentially we're stupid and therefore survive any kind of AI attack. For our human center.
Yeah, the very thing that like we would say like, oh, look at the personality of this piece would be the thing that AI would say like, God damn it, like I fucked up. Yeah, it's cool.
Well, they'll never get AI to write a script because they can't teach it to procrastinate, oversleep, have 4 cats, feel sorry for itself. Yeah, it ain't happening.
That's true.
Questions. Boy, there are so many of them. He's so that must mean he's smart.
First of all, Zack and Deborah there.
Thank you.
It was a really
Our
big
pleasure.
deal. It was a really big deal for us. I know they shut down the production for huge drag for everyone. We were glad you were able. Philosophically, as storyteller, you're known as a very storyteller. Your plotting is very tight. It really requires maybe other films don't require of them. Is there any time through the testing process, other producers or something like that, where they think maybe the film's too tight, you're asking too much of the audience, they're getting lost, they're making mistakes when they go online and saying stupid shit over and over and over again for 10 goddamn years? Is there ever a point where you have felt like loosen this up a little? We're relying on the audience to be a little smarter than.
Go ahead.
I mean, look, you know, it's not even like that. We think about it in that way. You know, yes. When we show a movie and things that I think are obvious sometimes, but I always think that like if it's there, if it's in the movie and I know it's there, you know, then it makes it. The movie, you know, even if you have to look for it, you'll find it. It's not. And so a thing that you might be confused about, you would think that at a certain point, all the planning that we have, and you come to a moment in the movie where like, wait, they never set up that. Like, it's probably not the case. It's probably not the case that the characters. Now, yes, there are times, there are for time editorial or for whatever reason, you do certain things, you make certain cuts, you make certain compromises, and the movie, you know, mostly it can be, certainly certain storylines can be made smaller or made to feel like they don't matter or that they don't exist at all, that would affect the overall original concept. You're like, oh, okay. So I think more than do we go like, oh, should we be more careful and broader or less complicated? More than that, it's just that we have the complicated to begin with, and we end up like, you know, hacking a limb off of it in order for it to fit in. And that's painful, but, you know, for a piece of mass entertainment, sometimes, you know, you sacrifice, you know, a detail for, think about it. I don't know. Does that make sense, Debbie?
That Zack draws the entire, it's a process that I hate, actually, because we're prepping all day and working, and then he draws, and all weekend he's drawing, and it's like I don't even mind when he's writing because he writes the script. But the actual
I procrastinate.
All of that.
Yeah.
But the frames take so long to draw because of his head. But what it allows for, and we actually don't share these with anyone but the crew. They don't go to they see them later and they go, "Wow, we should publish those," or something like that. But it gives us, I think, just so much information. So I feel like it allows us to actually save money and give us more money for spectacle and things like that. Because for like Alex, he knows exactly where Zack shoots. Some directors that like, okay, we're shooting this room and they come in. You have to make that whole room because you don't know where they're going to be looking and what they're going to be. But a lot of times Zack would sit with Alex and be like, okay, I just need 2 walls.
Well, Watchmen for sure.
And in Watchmen we had that big backlot, and it was like we shot every single piece of it. We built it in a way that, you know, we were able to build so many more things and give it much scope and scale, right?
Yeah, I totally support that. I mean, we are asked to make, and you waste a lot of time, because, you know, so I think for us, we're always waiting for Zack's drawings and then sitting with the drawings, and then we're planning around. There's an exchange of the research, drawings that are inspired by what Zack does, and that moves us to a kind of process, zero in on that fine level of detail. So satisfying about Watchmen Steel both. With that level of precision, you know, it's spot.
Yeah, it's cool because like that. I mean, that was the thing about, you know, what the experience on Watchmen for me was that, you know, the guys Alex would just take the drawings and like amplify it on such an awesome level that like it would be, you know, you always hope that that you do a drawing and you're like, okay, well, it'd be cool if it's kind of like this, I think. And then I'd come in and be like, wow, that's better than what I thought. You know, it was a cool, you know, because it was such a great, Alex did such a great job of taking the comic book on this hand and my drawings on that hand and having then sort of satirical reality of what we perceived as the 20th century, basically. And like sort of found this great, you know, sort of those 3 things, you know, even just like in the talk shows, you know, we had a few talk shows in the movie, I was always like really in love with the talk show sets and or news sets because they were like that perfect weirdo reality that reminded you, but it wasn't the talk show exactly, but it was like this beautiful extract. It was like someone had or like made concentrate out of a pop culture event, and then it existed in, you know, like there it was, but it was like it wasn't anything you could say that's that, but it was all of the things, and not a cliche. It It was just this really cool alchemy of, and in a lot of ways, the comic book is that, even from moment to moment, like one of my favorite things, and it's not really in the comic book, was in the title sequence of that Studio 54 shot with Ozymandias and, Mick Jagger and Ziggy Stardust. And like this idea that like you could extrapolate the why of masked vigilantes being like flamboyant costumes based on excess or in fashion. This weirdo juxtaposition also near in the 70s. It's just like a cool, I don't know, like those are the kind of things that I just thought were like really, yeah.
Well, Watchmen's a great example of the process, isn't it? Because the comic book was the first time I realized, Watchmen, the comic book was really five-dimensional. There's so many, when you look crosswise and embedded, and, but to make sense of, you've got to, and it goes back to Zack drawing. It's like, how the hell the world is, it's that kind of fine, but the comic book then for visuals, surreality.
Yeah, I would cut it out. I was like my drawings, and like literally, if you look at, I don't know, I've probably shown, but like if you look at the drawings I've done of the title sequence of Watchmen, it is a weirdo collage scrapbook of it's frames from the graphic novel and pop culture, whether it be Norman Rockwell or the Enola Gay or whatever it is, like all the things. It's this really all the stuff. And all the way to Action Comics, it has because that comic book and that piece of mythology is linked back, because it deconstructs comic book, it is self-reflexive. So it says, okay, it doesn't acknowledge that, or it does acknowledge, but kind of pretends like it's not a comic book, so it has this amazing, like a bit, it's like, it's saying that reality, like just the simple fact that in that world comics don't exist. And so pirate comic books are the comic books, right? Pirate heroes are the heroes are real. So like that little game of deconstruction is the game that we then play with every single thing, like on every level, every idea, every like nuance, whether it be or War with the Russians or, Doctor Strangelove and all the things that we kept mixing pot were all meant to make the original sort of theme of the comic book, reinforce it. And I think that was a super fun, for that reason, it was satisfying. It was like every day we'd show, and it'd be another crazy thing, like it's a crazy Nixon, like, doing his crazy, whatever, just fun.
This is, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in because I've got a question from the perfect, because about, the sound design there's obviously nothing in there by mistake. Tell us a little bit about how your process for putting these soundscapes together.
We worked with amazing sound designer, Scott Hecker, who has worked on every single movie since Dawn. And we start really in the process with Scott, and he will, like the World Engine.
Yeah, he was working. We had the World Engine sounds while we were shooting.
We were like, what does this sound like? The zombie Army of the Dead. We wanted them to, what do they sound like? And here's what they look like. And, I think that dialogue, you would start that early, but it starts with showing him some of the art, sometimes some of the footage. So then when we're, that you have 12 weeks after you for the editor and 10 weeks for Zack to present that director's cut. And if you just start then, the same thing with music, like, whether it be Hans or Junkie, they start really early on, like that, they haven't even, sometimes it's when we're prepping and they're just working on it from the script and discussion. A lot of times Zack will create these mixtapes that he listens to when he's drawing. And like for Watchmen,
they're not on tape anymore.
Oh, that is true. Sorry, but
although I should go back to that. That'd be cool. I just saw that. I think on where did I see that? Like, was it on? Was it on like? I think it's on Uncreate. I don't know. Like they had this like cassette. It was like a new one. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to buy that so I can make some mixtapes.
Okay, playlist.
I like mixtapes. Don't get me.
I think that it's about story and it's about Carolyn's, whether it's the sound of a space. We're working on space weapons right now. We've been working on those for a long time to figure out the perfect sound for sound or whatever. Like it's, I think that just spending as much time developing the sounds than we do with which is why Zack also loves sound. So we always have a lot of it in the film.
Yeah, I do. I do love sound. I always say Scott and I's favorite thing to say is I go, well, like any noise that is like a door closing or like, I go like, you should get like a safe door and record it. Like that should be the sound. He's like, well, it's like a cabinet, that the guy would, I'm like, still should be a safe door. Like everything should, bigger safe door. Like a smaller, like a range of safe doors, but like really huge one for that. But yeah, no, Scott loves that. He's like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, he's like, sound is a weapon. That's what he always says. Because we'll be in the mix and I'll be like, oh, my ears are bleeding. And he'll say, then he's like, sound is a weapon. Be careful. Keep the dog. Like we were mixing the other day and there was like a dog there. The dog has to leave the mix stage or we have to put little headphones on it because it's too loud for the little dog. But it's true.
Well, you certainly got to hear it tonight, in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's Dolby Atmos. Thank you very much. There's 90 speakers in here. And when you have a good movie, people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So it's pretty cool. So I think we...
Sure, stand up.
Hear you.
Yeah, face that way. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have.
Okay. So I would really love to get an insight into world building for Crypt, even though it's not got a lot of presence as far as runtime goes. It's incredibly dense with socio-political heavy allegory for the military-industrial complex, the climate crisis. You have these they're very clearly representative of like Westerns who do nothing about the climate crisis that we're all having to deal with right now. And there's a polar bear, which like, why is there a polar bear in the movie if you're not talking about the climate crisis? Yeah, we got the polar bear. But yeah, it's just,
we got him from IMAX, by the way, which is cool.
It's a highly militaristic society that like eugenic. Like they're bragging about not having a compass. So it's just really densely packed, even a lot there as far as I said runtime goes. So yeah, because I find it fascinating.
I mean, the only thing there's a lot. I mean, yes, thank you, great question, and there's a lot to unpack with that. We could do like probably an hour of that. But I'll let Alex talk about the design because he did touch on it, but I think there's more there. I guess for me, it was like, yes, it's a small part of the movie. Well, small, what is it, minutes or something like that, or maybe less. And we knew but you have to sort of do the work of making a credible world for Superman to come from. And so I think that work of, and also, honor canon, kind of understand, even just on a sort of purely comic book level, you have that to do. That's the first. Then Goyer's script had a lot of that stuff in it, and we talked a lot about whether it be the climate crisis, denial of how these events are going to like flesh out, and sort of like, and then also, of course, Zod and Zod's take, this sort of coup. And also, I think the thing about Zod that's really interesting is his you could argue whether or not he's right. That's what makes point of view. He also thinks they're crazy. But is his method the correct method? So all of those layers, I think, were in discussions. We would say how do you then visualize like that, and also make it Jor-El's house looks like. But there's a reason. There's a why to it. And I think I was I thought that was all. And I think that the Citadel is very very strong. And they were trying to, what they're trying to do. So it's very interesting, it's very cool. But anyway, I guess my point is that, that goes back to what we were just talking about. I think as far as, you have story, you have intent, and then Alex has a really hard job because none of that stuff exists. Krypton is a mythological place. And it doesn't exist even as it does in the movie. So even if you were going to go look at historical Krypton in movies, we weren't going to do that. Be like, no, okay, can we learn from it? Yes. But I think in the end, because our story is so particular, the design has to just that. But of course, without denying, contradicting, that's the challenge.
A little bit about the foam language. There is a lot of penis.
Thank God. There's a lot of vaginas in the scout ship, which is also.
But I think what you're
not hard to see. I think
gender equality.
It's not a surprise.
We're always
represent. You got to represent.
But you're asking about the mythology, and I think that's where the opportunity, the glyphs that they're wearing, not an S on Zod's chest is tied back in clans, essentially drilled in. This incredible world to see. But then we through line and in design is, and the level of that it may not be, was incredibly satisfying. I've never done so before was when Zack wanted a language, where to begin with, I think you wanted to speak.
Yeah, my original concept was that on Krypton, it was all going to be subtitled, and they were going to learn Kryptonian, and that was going to be just how the movie was. Like, and then my original idea was like no subtitles, like it's like Passion of the Christ. It's like Aramaic or something. Like you just have to kind of understand. Like you have to just sort of figure it out from the content. That was exactly. That was how like crazy it was at the beginning. You're insane.
Yeah, I think I said, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah. I was like, but like, isn't that cooler? Like I don't know.
But it actually wove through all of Krypton in the end because you are. And then we hired a linguist, anthropologist, an entire language, and it related. So if you have your, but then it like the S in particularly because you're right that Krypton's 20 minutes, but the design of the that we.
All right, so I totally lost track of time so I think we have time before we let everybody go. Stand up. Poor Lily has to schlep clear across this.
Hello. Zack and Debbie, I'm a video producer, and many people consider the action genre to be a boys' club. However, I believe your films depict women as powerful and autonomous, contain many nuanced details of gender theory. Speak on the intentionality and portray the women in your films, specifically in men.
Wow. You want me to go? Or you can go. Okay, good.
I think what was amazing when we were talking about the character, working with David Goyer on the script, was that traditionally Superman was always, and I feel like in our film, she saves him as much as saves her. And I think that was really important, and I do think like all of our films have really strong female characters. I think Zack is definitely not threatened by strong in his life. And we try and surround ourselves, we always talk about what's in the script. We talk about the character a lot of times. We talk about female directors, but it's just as important for all the technical, because there are like 500 people on these big movies, sometimes 1,000 on a day if you're counting construction. And I was always so tired of looking around, and I love men. Listen, I like working with them. It's great. I'm very comfortable with that. But I also want to see more women behind the camera. And we really tried to have really strong female position. Is a woman. We've hired our best woman that we've been working with. In just very big. And as heads of departments. And we've also, one of the things, bring young women, not necessarily everyone's in film school are already there. They know what at least film is all about, but high schools, and we've worked with programs with lower income students to bring them, and particularly women on set so they can see all the different roles. So it is very important to have these characters on screen, but to me, it's also equally important to have the crew be represented.
Really good point. All right, you're on the spot, sir. You get the last question.
Okay. All right. So I spend a bit thinking about this. Zack, love your always have. Talk about your cinematography, because I feel like comic directors have a style where you almost like the framing always looks like it's a comic book, like Justice League. Almost that whole movie looks like a walking comic book. Tell me I know you draw, but tell me like some of your thought process, what goes into cinematography.
Thank you. That's good. Appreciate that. I guess it does start with the drawings as far as. For me anyway, like as far as how I'm sort of visual, I know that it's a tool for everyone, but it also for me, like the drawing is the first time I make the movie, the first time I sort of, sort of composition from a story standpoint and like as a piece, I do like, as best I can, I like each frame to have a little bit of a beginning, middle, and end as best I can. And I think that's probably why it has an illustrative quality, because, like an illustration, which whether it be a comic book drawing or painting or whatever, it really relies on that one frame to tell its entire story. It has to convey, it has to have a beginning, middle, and end. It has to have depth. It has emotional, be world building, it has to be everything, single moment. It doesn't really have the opportunity to say like, oh, don't wait for the next painting, figure out what's happening in this one. Like, that's not really how classically, how less linear art forms like a sculpture or a photograph or a painting sort of exist. They exist in a particular moment. Film, of course, and other sort of mixed media that expresses itself across time or expresses itself in multiple environments or whatever can exist as a sort of progressive experience, move forward. But like when you make an image for a film, if you can do it if you can sort of treat each shot, even though you are in this, movement, you can, I think you can, even though I'm not successful in every frame, I don't think the attempt is there by me, make it feel as if this frame has a beginning, middle, and end. It could exist on its own. It doesn't necessarily need before it or after it for itself. Now, that doesn't mean like as the giant puzzle that is the movie, it is the other piece to tell the greater story for itself. Just like we don't know how our story affects humanity, our single self, but we are complete as ourselves. And so, but we are part of this big tapestry. I think that's a way of thinking about it. Like when you go to make a shot, and now I don't mean to be instructive, but like when you're a filmmaker and you're going to make a shot, if that is even in the smallest way in your consciousness, that like, wow, what about this shot? Because the truth is, if you know anything about the way a movie set works, it's like, okay, we got to get the shot of them coming in the door and sitting down and taking the pencil out and starting to write the thing. So you're like, okay, cool. Like I guess the door's over there. So, in order to see them come through it, we're going to point the camera at the door. You're not like, yeah, that'd be great if you did that every time. And trust me, I endeavor to, but a lot of times they're like, look, we got 5 minutes. If we don't get the shot of the kid now, the kid's going to go off the clock. And that's it. You don't get to film the kid. So you're like, okay, all right, just like, how about like this? We'll see if we can capture them on film in some way, like walking across the room. So there are those moments as well. It's just like the reality of just madness, motion picture photography. But if at all possible, to endeavor to make a frame that you find aesthetically compelling, I think that's really it. And also, I would say to any filmmakers out there, and whether it's a movie or a painting or a photograph, whatever you're doing, you are also the prism of the thing. Like AI doesn't have the ability, like as a viewer, I want this prism, the reality that the filmmaker puts on. You have your experience, you walk around the world, you feel things, and then when it goes through you and onto the screen. And I, as a human being, want that. I want your touch, your personality, your way of seeing on screen, so I can have an empathetic human experience by what you put on screen. And I think that is the way I kind of try anyway, to think about the way I photograph things. I had a teacher here at Art Center, this guy named Paul Jasmine, amazing photographer, and he said, it doesn't matter, like the camera, none of it matters, like the quality of the camera, all that matters is your point of view. That's it. That's all you have as a filmmaker and as an artist, is the way you, like, no one can know the way you see. The only way to get into your head and to see how you see is for you to make something that allows me to experience that in some small way. So like, that's the job of, to like, let me your eyes. That's what I try and do. So that's what I hope you guys do.
That is awesome right there and so true. So I'm going to wrap up my part of this by just giving you guys out. So I heard this from one of our instructors days ago. They in a classroom in their work, and because the conversation was to Zack, and it says, but Zack is handsome.
That's nice.
I thought, okay.
That's a good way to end this whole conversation. I don't think it's really kind of Debbie agrees, I hope.
I think he's
So
hot.
that's it? That's it?
Although I did say to the...
I don't know what that has to do with film school. But that's cool.
It's because...
I'm not contradicting the analysis. I feel like that's
I'd take it. I would take it. But then as a student, does know you're a film tough room.
Well, all I'll say is that I don't think that's a requirement of motion picture. And I think there's a lot of handsome movie directors out there. I think it's kind of a rude. I feel like that's not cool.
It was really
some of my good friends were very handsome men and women. That's kind. That's kind. It's a biased crowd though, so I'm not gonna take it to the bank 100%. So that's cool. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Debbie,
Good
kisser. I don't know.
think I want to say that there are and
That's true.
These amazing that Zack saw from Weta out, and if you're online, but just to be able to talk about the film is really fun, and to talk about filmmaking and also just important cause. And thank you again for coming. And we still have 2 days left. So
Yay!
Thank you, everyone.
I don't know what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Hopefully
Thanks,
something
everyone.
controversial. Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.